Hello again. There are calls in Britain for children to be admitted to school from the age of 2. It's a move Britain's educational standards watchdog says will help disadvantaged kids and those with poor social skills. To discuss whether something similar could benefit us here in New Zealand, we're joined by Mangere East Primary School Principal Phil Palfrey. Thank you for coming in today and joining the panel. 2 seems awfully young. I have a daughter just over 1 and I couldn't bear just taking the whole educational side out of it, just emotionally for a parent. That's a big ask, isn't it?
Well, I think it's a huge ask, and I don't think 2-year-olds should be going to school at all. In fact, I think that it's a parent's role at that time to give their children experiences and talk to them, just talking to them, reading to them, creating places where that they can dance and sing, and all those things are far more important than learning the 3 R's, which is what that report talks about. Much more important. Imagination is way more important.
I wonder if another thing is I do a bit of stuff with Duffy Books and Schools programs, which deals with the lower decile schools.
Yes.
And a lot of the teachers say, because lower decile schools get the funding, they get the money, they get great stuff like iPads and all the rest of it, then the kids go home and it's not there. Are you just not setting up that disparity from an even younger age?
Well, that might be the case, but I just think that a lot of the things that I was just talking about are free. It's really interesting. I go to the supermarket far too much, really, once every fortnight, and that's far too much. But when you're at the supermarket, that's something where I do see parents at their worst and their best. And it's strange enough, because I knew this was going to be on, last night I went to the supermarket and it was around about 5:30 and there was a young Māori mum in there, and the first thing she did as she walked in, the same as I did, she picked up a tomato and gave it to her little child and talked about the tomato, and that was the conversation. That's rare. Usually it's about telling the kids to behave, to shut up, and putting their kids down and giving 2-year-olds lectures and things like that. Well, why do people do that? You know, they could regard shopping as the most fantastic experience for that child for the day, and talk about the things and talk about who are the people around them and all sorts of things. And yet it seems to be a big chore, and that's really sad for me, because now that I have grandchildren, I see that children are the most important thing in the world. And to give them those life experiences, those conversation experiences, is just the best thing in the world.
As you say, Phil, though, not all parents are created equal, so you will have parents that are going to neglect their kids. Would it not benefit them at the age of 2, Nadine, to be in an environment where at least they'll be getting some stimulation?
Well, I was going to ask you that question, but I think the point you were making is about that it's not necessarily about book learning at that age, that you're wanting to support their creative spirit and build up their confidence and get them socialising with other kids. I also wondered whether it would be an issue. You know, at 2, you're still napping as a 2-year-old, aren't you? So it'll be quite a different experience to be teaching 2-year-olds. And actually, what do you think of the kinds of facilities that you have at the moment, like preschool, kindergarten? I mean, does that fill a need?
They're quite educational, aren't they?
Oh, of course they are, and they have the preschool syllabus, although I'm not that familiar with it, still encourages all that play and the developmental stuff that we all had when we were young. So these incredible years, there's a program called Incredible Years where parents work with teachers, parents work with their children, Incredible Teachers as well, which does a similar thing. But there's the Hippie program, which is another program which helps parents interact with their children. But it's all about that sort of thing, about parents taking responsibility for making their children creative. And you don't have to, I mean, it would be fantastic if all parents read to their children. Reading is absolutely critical. That's where the imagination comes in. That's where all those things are built up. But parents, I often see parents walking with their children and they're on their iPhones all the time. Every minute they're on that iPhone when they're walking with their kid is a chance lost to be talking about all sorts of things.
Having said that, hypothetically, putting on the devil's advocate hat here, I'm a single mum, I'm struggling for money, and I get this opportunity, and it means I can go and work for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day. I'm going to grab that with both hands, aren't I?
Oh, I understand that. I work in an area and I understand the poverty, and I've talked about poverty a lot. And I understand where a lot of my parents and our parents come from, and I understand that too. But what I'm talking about is free. And so...
it's free, but the opportunity to make money is not there with that. I understand what you're saying. It's not going to cost.
You mean while they go to so they can go to preschool, and that's where the preschool will augment or support what they're doing at home. But I'm just talking about The rest of the time, remember that even in a teaching day, the kids are only there for 5 or 6 hours. The rest of the time, which makes the most influence.
Okay, Phil, we're going to have to wrap. Sorry, we're just a little bit over time, but I think the point you're making here is parents take some responsibility.
I think so.
Phil Palfrey, Nadine and Greg, thank you guys.